Good morning, enter the stars. And I'm in complete and utter shock about what I found about the children of Maui. Everybody's talking about the children of Maui and what happened to them. Now, nobody knows anything for sure, but during our research of the Maui and Burning Man events, I believe we uncovered some clues about what may have happened. Now, as we explore some of this ancient mythology about child sacrifice, some of what we will be talking about is very disturbing. And to be clear to anybody who's reviewing this video, I'm not making any claims about what happened to the children. We're simply reading a history lesson on the past and discussing the similarities to current events. Let's examine the cult of Tlaloc, the black rock god of volcano sacrifice. Let's begin. So, Saturday, we discovered that Burning Man sits in the shadow of an ancient volcano. Here it is here. It's called Thacker Pass Lithium Mine. And Burning Man is actually in the mud flow downstream from the volcano. I confirmed that in Google Earth. I looked at the elevations. I looked at the path of the lava flow from the volcano. And literally, Burning Man is sitting in the lava flow path of the volcano. Now, the volcano is full of lithium that the federal government just started mining a few years ago. That was Friday's video. So if you're lost on that topic, you need to go back and watch that. Now, what are they using the lithium for? Well, the lithium will be used to make parts for electric vehicles, as well as superconductors. Now, how do volcanoes fit into all this, and what happened to the children of Maui? Well, it centers around an ancient volcano god named Tlaloc, also known as Calchihootkiklu, or whatever, however you say this. Also known as the Kachina doll, Wu. Hahai e Wu Uti, to be exact. Maybe the Hopi form of Tlaloc, which is also known as Calchihootkiklu, whatever, however you pronounce that. Here it is right here. Now, why is Wu so important? Well, Wu is the exact name given to the volcano in the movie Joe versus the Volcano. Again, we covered that on Friday. And in that movie, Joe jumps into the volcano as a sacrifice. Now, this goes deep today, and there's going to be a lot of oh wows. So listen closely, please. Now, this paper right here actually confirms the link between the Hopi god Wu, or the Hopi doll Wu, and Tlaloc. They were both volcano gods. Hopi spring planting rituals of Paumanu, also known as purification or the bean dance. To recapitulate briefly, the Aztec rituals were dedicated primarily to Tlaloc, god of the rains, to his feminine aspect, Calchihootkiklu, goddess of ground waters, to Tontinnitzin, one aspect of the multifaceted mother goddess, and to her less benevolent aspects. The purpose of the ritual is to bring rain and encourage fertility during the spring planting season. To this end, incense, rubber, food, and pulque were offered to the gods. But more particularly to these rites were the offerings of the blood of children, both from small and localized perforations, such as the tongue, ear, or chin, and from actual child sacrifice. During this period, the Aztec offered many children upon the mountains. They offered them as sacrifices to Tlaloc, so that they would give them water. The tears of the children, too, were important as a catalyst for sympathetic magic intended to invoke Tlaloc's tears, the actual rainfall. And if the children went crying, their tears coursing down and bathing their faces, it was said and understood that indeed it would rain. Their tears signified rain. Now, I know this is heavy subject matter, but this is probably one of the most important videos we'll ever do because it gets down to the root of the cult. And it coincides with events that actually happened. Volcano sacrifice, the rain god, the mud, the whole thing. And this story needs to be told. This is Wu, the Wu Kachina doll. Take a nice long look. Now, what is this about? Well, there's another doll called a mud doll. This is it here, a mud head. The technical name of this Kachina doll is called a koyemzi. And guess what the mudhead did? It's a clown that acts as an announcer of events. And this begs the question, was the Mud Burning Man event the announcement of something in the future that is much, much larger? Now, why are we talking about all this? Because I believe what happened at Maui and Burning Man were rituals to this ancient demon god. And we're going to get down to the bottom of it. And by the end of this show, I'm going to show you something you're not even going to believe with your eyes in Google Earth. Let me check in with you guys. Make sure we're here and connected and everything is okay. Let's break down the specifics of Tlaloc because he is the base god of all of this, isn't he? This is Tlaloc right here. And guess what? He wielded a lightning bolt as his wand. Says it right in Wikipedia. And it also, let me show you. We're going to be very specific here. If I could spell. Here it is right here. Hail, thunder, and lightning. And it says that he wielded this lightning. He is most often coupled with lightning, maize, and water in visual representations and artwork. Tlaloc's impersonators often wore the distinctive mask and heron feather headdress, usually carrying a cornstalk or a symbolic lightning bolt wand. Tlaloc also manifested in the form of boulders, which were likely black since it was on a volcano. And he was offered children as sacrifice after their hearts were removed. Now, the obvious clue that Tlaloc was the hidden god. behind all this was in the appearance of his face. In two separate films that we just decoded about Maui and Burning Man. What were the movies? Moana and Joe versus the Volcano. On your left, this is from Joe versus the Volcano. This is the job that he goes into to go to work. It's like a prison. And that was a decode from a few days ago. He walks into this pharmaceutical company, and there you see this face. And I was like, I've seen that face before. Because in the movie Moana, this same face appears. Let me try to get both of these in frames so you could see this. Look at the eyebrows. Look at the eyes. Look at the bone across the top of the mouth. Look at the teeth. And down below is the lightning bolt symbol of where Joe works. Down below, the tattoo on Maui in the movie Moana is the number 666. Covered that in a previous show as well. You see how all this is coming together? And this is Tlaloc. And there you see all the features. The bone across the nose, the big eyes, the row of teeth in front. This is Tlaloc. Now, this is Burning Man, as you can see on your screen. And this point here is the lithium mine at Thacker Pass. Literally, as you're standing in Burning Man, and it literally almost points directly to the lithium-filled volcano. And as you can see, the flow of lava would have went here and around and down right into the mudflats of Burning Man. So, you can imagine my horror when I looked up Tlaloc and read that he is the god who demanded child sacrifice several times per year, and their hearts were removed before they were thrown into the volcano. Just like was mentioned in both of the movies. Moana, when they're at the mouth of that structure, and Maui says it requires sacrifice to open the portal. And then, of course, in the movie Joe versus the Volcano, where he offers himself as a sacrifice to the volcano. Now, before we get into reading about Tlaloc, so I'm going to be very specific. We're going to read the specifics of the ancient codex that describe him. I told you on Friday that Burning Man sits in the shadow of this massive lithium volcano. They call it a supervolcano. And they're going to use this lithium for superconductors. I also wanted to close the loop on Meg Ryan. She was in the movie Joe versus the Volcano, you'll remember. And we covered that on a previous show. If you're getting caught up, you got to go back and look at all this. And remember, she appeared as 3 separate women in the movie, didn't she? The reason why I want to close the loop on her is because there's something huge that I missed about her birthday. 11/19/61. How old is Meg Ryan? 61 years old. Born in 61, and she's 61 years old. Remember in the movie, the bad guy, the billionaire, who plays her father in the movie, said 99 years, 11 months, and 11 days? Well, there you go. It's safe to say that her role in this movie was meant to be discovered and revealed at exactly precisely this time in the spiritual timeline. Now, let's read about Tlaloc, because you're not even going to believe this. And then at the end of the show, I'm going to show you guys some solid evidence that Tlaloc and Maui and Burning Man are all connected. So, as I said earlier in the show, Tlaloc wielded a lightning bolt as a wand. And, wow, in the movie Joe vs. the Volcano, the lightning bolt is the central theme of the entire movie. You see it here in 3 separate scenes. This is the logo of the company that Joe works for. Joe is, what's his name? Tom Hanks. Here is the pathway walking up to work. It's also a lightning bolt. And finally, the pathway that Joe walks up to the volcano to sacrifice himself in the movie is also the lightning bolt. And it appears one more time on his wall in his apartment. And as I showed you a little bit earlier, it appears in the chin of where Joe works. This is the entrance to Joe's work. So, the lightning bolt wielding Tlaloc. He's right here. Now, let's keep going. Because Tlaloc is also known to wield a serpent. Let's look that up. Tlaloc included a variety of elements or symbols: jaguars, serpents. And guess what? The serpent that he wields looks like a hook. Here's the lightning bolt. These are images of Tlaloc. And here is the serpent that he wields. Another image there. Here is Tlaloc with lightning bolts. Here is Tlaloc with a serpent in his hand. There's another image of him with the serpent in his hand. Now I'm going to go back into the chat. Where have you seen that image before? Please thumbs up the video, you guys. Lets everybody know we're live. Where have you seen that holding, that what he's holding in his hand? Let's see who gets it. Where have you seen that before? There you go. Established presence. Got it. Think of the movies we just covered. Maui from Mona. Let's do a side-by-side. Now, some of you are probably borderline sick to your stomach right now about what I'm going to show you, but you need to see this. Look at what he's holding, and now look at Maui from the movie Moana. He has the same thing. So it's not a hook at all that he's holding, is it? It's a serpent. Now, let's read about what Tlaloc did, and I'll put a link to this for you guys. Everything I'm going to read is going to be from this Wikipedia page about Tlaloc. And therein lies the answer to probably what happened to the children. Let's begin. The Chacmol. Let's go back here to the beginning. Found at Chichen Itza. Appears to have been used for sacrificial purposes. Let me go back to the part on the page you guys can kind of follow along. Here it is. As the Chacmol is shaped like a captive who has been bound. Likewise, two of the Chacmols that have been found at Templo Mayor make clear references to Tlaloc. The first Chacmol portrays Tlaloc 3 times, once on the vessel for collecting the blood and heart of the sacrificed victims, once on the underpart of the Chacmol with aquatic motifs related to Tlaloc, and the actual figure of the Chacmol itself is of Tlaloc as the figure portrays the iconic goggle eyes and large fangs. In Aztec cosmology, the 4 corners of the universe are marked by the 4 Tlalocs, which both hold up the sky and function as the frame for the passing of time. Remember the image on the tattoo of Maui holding up the sky with the 666 on it. Jade crystals like the rock in Moana. Remember the rock in Moana? It was a central theme in the film. It was the creative force. They called it the heart. And this jade-colored rock was used to create. Well, the jade is also an aspect of Tlaloc. The rain that was beneficial to the land was burnished with jade crystals and likely represented the type of rain that would make a bountiful harvest. Many rich offerings were regularly placed before it, especially those linked to water, such as shells, jade, and sand. And finally, the female version of Tlaloc, which is this name here, as we mentioned earlier, or she of the jade skirt, was the deity connected with the worship of groundwater. So jade was pervasive in the Tlaloc cult, which is why it was represented in the movie Moana. Now, let's move on. Because Tlaloc had 4 pitchers of water. It says here, also the shrine contained 4 pitchers containing water. Each pitcher will produce a different fate if used on crops. The first would bring forth a good harvest. The second would cause the harvest to fail and rot. The third would dry the harvest out, and the final one would freeze it. Sacrifices that took place on Mount Tlaloc were thought to favor early rains. Remember the 4 trunks in the movie Joe versus the Volcano? I believe they represent the 4 pitchers of Tlaloc. And this is why Tom Hanks does the X-Man pose, or the Burning Man pose, with 4 fingers. You can't make this up. These are the 4 trunks of Tlaloc. Now let's keep going. Back to Tlaloc. The Atacultulo festivals was celebrated from the 12th of February until the 3rd of March, dedicated to Tlaloc. This Vienna involved the sacrifice of children on sacred mountaintops, like Mount Tlaloc. We're going to go to the shrine of Mount Tlaloc in a few minutes. I'm going to show you something you're not even going to believe with your eyes. This form of human sacrifice was not only specific, but necessary in the eyes of the Aztecs. The children were beautifully adorned, dressed in the style of Tlaloc. The children were chosen by the community. And although this selection came with honor, being selected came with great responsibility. Furthermore, these children were not usually of high social class. The children to be sacrificed were carried to Mount Tlaloc on litters strewn with flowers and feathers, while also being surrounded by dancers. Once the children reached the peak, they would have to stay overnight with the priests at the vigil. The priests were not allowed to leave this site, or else they would be considered makakok, whatever, which means they who are abandoned. Then at the shrine, the children's hearts would be pulled out by Aztec priests. If on the way to the shrine these children cried, their tears were viewed as positive signs of imminent and abundant rains. This can be viewed as fairly reverse, but also logical. The Aztecs were a very literal culture, so basing their whole year off of a child crying or not falls right in line. Every festival, 7 children were sacrificed in and around Lake Texcoco in the Aztec capital. The children were either slaves or the second-born children of noble people. If the children did not cry, it meant a bad year for their whole system of living and agriculture. To signify when the rains were about to end, the Aztecs relied on the call from a bird known as Quetzalcoatl. This would signify a switch to soft rain rolling in. The festival of Toxicity, which was from March 24th to April 12th, similarly involved child sacrifice. During this festival, the children were sacrificed in caves. The flayed skins of sacrificial victims that had been worn by priests for the last 20 days were taken off and placed in these dark magical caverns. The winter Ventana of Adamozlitli from December 9th to December 28th was also dedicated to Tlaloc. So now these are 3 separate sacrificial events during the year. This period preceded an important rainy season, so statues were made out of the amaranth dough. Their teeth were pumpkin seeds, and their eyes were beans. Once these statues were offered copal, which were fine scents, and other food items, while they also prayed to and adorned with finery. Afterwards, their doughy chests were opened, their hearts taken out, before their bodies were cut up and eaten. The ornaments with which they had been adorned were taken and burned in people's patios. On the final day of Ventana, people celebrated and held banquets. Let's keep reading. The current damage that is present at the top of Mount Tlaloc is thought to be likely of human destruction. Let's go down to that part. Rather than natural forces, there also appears to have been a construction of a modern shrine that was built in the 1970s, which suggests that there was a recent or present attempt to conduct rituals on the mountaintop. And now we are going to go to the summit of Mount Tlaloc, where these children were sacrificed. Remember the four fingers that Tom Hanks was holding up? Well, Tlaloc sits at 24.44 degrees north, 19. And now you're beginning to see why these images were hidden in the movies and not shown outright. Because the history of this god is downright spooky and pure evil. Joe vs. Volcano and the movie Moana has the hidden face of Tlaloc. Just wow. Now, let's go to the summit of Mount Tlaloc. Here is the ancient Causeway. And there you see it aligned with the rising sun. Ruins on Mount Tlaloc are an ancient observatory. Archaeologists have discovered that ancient inhabitants of the basin of Mexico kept an accurate agricultural calendar using sunrise observatories and mountain alignments on Mount Tlaloc in Mexico. Mount Tlaloc is an eroded stratovolcano located in the state of Mexico. The mountain was worshipped by the Aztecs, who associated with the rain god Tlaloc as one of his earthly dwelling places, called Tlalocon. Extravagant ceremonies, plentiful offerings, and the lives of young Mesoamericans were all offered to Tlaloc in order to appease him in the beginning of the rain season. Some scholars argue that Aztec temple pyramids are symbolic representations of Mount Tlaloc, such as the central temple in the Aztec capital of Tenochtitlan. A team led by archaeologists has conducted a study to identify horizon calendars, which notes the position of the rising or setting sun against the geographical features along the horizon. The researchers found that if the observer stands in the lower part of the stone causeway, looking upward on the 23rd or 24th of February, they will witness the sun riding exactly in the middle of the shaft. Interestingly, in the Mexico New Year, according to the Aztec calendar, the latest and more accepted date proposed by Professor Raphael, based on the studies, suggests that the date of the new year occurs on the 23rd of February. The long causeway at the summit strongly suggests that the ceremonial structure was used as a solar landmark, aligning very precisely with the rising sun. Here are some pictures of this causeway, an ancient causeway to the sun. Here's another picture. Another one here. So what do you think I did? Let's go back into the chat. And this is the bombshell, the unthinkable, that I could have never imagined. Literally, when I pulled the line to see where the causeway pointed, I could not even believe my eyes. Where do you think the causeway points to? Let's see who gets the answer. You won't even believe it unless you see it with your own eyes. Yes, we have established a new ley line. There you go. Not only does it point directly to Maui, it points directly to Lahaina. Here's the evidence right here. There is Mount Tlaloc and the causeway. Look at the red line. Now watch as I type in Lahaina, and you will see exactly where this line points. Now let me pause this for a second, because there's always naysayers, people that don't understand what alignments are. And this, I believe, is from the enemy, saying, oh, a line can point anywhere. No, it can't. This line that aligns with the walls of this causeway has a set amount of points that fall in that line. In other words, if this line was pointing that direction, it will completely miss Lahaina. That's one objection I get. Don't be fooled by what people will tell you. It's because they're trying to hide all of this. The other objection I get is, Casey, this isn't a real alignment because it's not on a flat earth. Again, why do you think they make the alignments to a globe earth? It's to reinforce the globe lie. So don't dismiss ley lines just because it's not on a flat earth. When you do that, you're hiding this from people. They dismiss it. Watch what happens when we go follow where this causeway points in Google Earth. Direct hit. Lahaina, Maui, to the volcano where children were sacrificed. Again, I'm not making any assumptions about this. I'm simply showing you guys the alignments in the history and weird anomalies that don't seem to make sense. Now, tomorrow, the curious case of the third eye shrimp. This is the third eye shrimp that is just hatched after the massive amount of rain that Burning Man experienced. And this, next to it, is the Burning Man logo. What do you think this diamond represents now when you look at the third eye of the third eye shrimp? And the question is, will this be a precursor to the locusts coming up out of the pit? All right, I'm in the chat. I told you this was going to be a show to remember. But it only gets seen if you guys share the video, mention it in other people's chats and comments. YouTube is not sending out shares. Sometimes you can't even share these videos. If you go to Facebook, it won't let you. The only way people are going to find out is grassroots and you telling other people to go check out the cult of Tlaloc. Let's go into the chat. Good morning, everybody. I mean, did you see the logo next to the third eye shrimp? Now, the only way a person can see that, it's a gift. It's a gift of the Holy Spirit to see the connections. That's the only way you see it. Because who else would have seen that? It's a gift. God gives us a gift to see these things. So we can know to steer clear of these places. So we can know what not to get into going into these end times. So we can steer clear of danger and spiritual warfare and all the other evil going on in this world. It is too much, isn't it? But it is the truth. All right, you guys. What else is going on? All opinions are welcomed, but rudeness is not. So, best way to stay on this channel is to be nice about your disagreement, and then you can talk and say whatever you want. but rudeness will not be permitted. Same way you wouldn't allow somebody to be rude to you in your home, we don't allow that in our chat. But you could say anything you want. I don't care what your belief system is. All right, what else is going on in the chat? Wow, just wow. All right, you guys, we'll be back tomorrow. I love each and every one of you. Have a great rest of your day. Take care and be safe.